2023 CFL Winter Meetings one-on-one with Montreal Alouettes head coach Jason Maas. How does that sound?
Sounds great to me.
Can you believe that's where you are after the season that you had in Saskatchewan?
No, and I get it. I understand how everybody thinks about that. No, I didn't visualize this happening. I didn't visualize this season the way it went in Saskatchewan either, though. So, for it to end the way it did and, be let go, and then for something like this to transpire and in such a short time, I feel very grateful more than anything.
Danny Machocha, your GM, was just sitting in that chair, and he talked about how you handled that season with the Rough Riders and it being difficult, and you kept your emotions relatively in check. Now, I'm saying this kind of jokingly, but you didn't break anything, right? And he said that anything in Montreal that you break, you got to pay for. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I'll agree to that. I don't think too many things are going to come out of my pocket. So I think I've learned my lesson over the years.
Is that something that you've worked on and that you've focused to change?
You know what? I'm aware more than anything. That's the thing. Was one of the Danny, knowing me as well as he does, one of the first things he asked me was that, what do you think about that? Talk to me about some of those things. And I explained to him, when those things happen, there's got to be something that really sets me off for something like that to happen. And I'm not, justifying those actions by any means, but that's me. That's, you see what you get. But I do know how it can affect other people, and that's ultimately when you're looked at one of the leaders of the organization, or looked at as the leader of the organization, and people follow you and follow your emotions. If it doesn't help other players play better, then I probably should check that a little bit. So that's what I've looked at it and understood that's something that I need to start thinking a little bit more about, but ultimately I want to be free as a coach too, and let my emotions, because it's something that is a strength for me, and define who I am. But ultimately, yes, I've thought about it, and I think you're going to see some different reactions from me on the sidelines from here going out.
The other part of it, though, that you could make an argument for is it's passion. You're passionate about football.
Well, and then that's the thing, and Montreal's a passionate city, so maybe it's a perfect fit that way. And there are passionate football players, there's passionate people. So there are people that relate, but ultimately when you're the leader, you've got to relate to everybody. So that's why I say if everyone's not relatable to that, and I'm not going to probably be able to all the time be the way I am and all those things, and certain aspects may come out. But ultimately I'm aware of it, and that's the most important thing, and I'll try to control it, for the simple fact that I want to lead everybody and show that there's other ways of leading and other ways of showing displeasure or disappointment or anger, I should say, towards something that you feel wasn't right. And that's ultimately, when I think of those things that have gotten me to where everybody sees or talks about, there's been a lot of build up to that. And so I've got to do a better job of channeling it.
I know you're a film junkie, and I'm guessing you've probably gone back over the Rough Riders season in 2022, the offensive tape. Have you done so, and what do you see that could have been changed, or were the reasons that maybe that offense
I will say
wasn't as
this:
productive?
My computer was taken from me right away. So that's, when you think about a season, and when you're in the season, your whole job is coming up with plans and putting together game plans and focusing on the film you're watching and all that stuff. November 1st hits and you're not with an organization, there's a 6-week period where you don't have a computer. You're not doing anything. So I got a computer for the first time December 23rd, and then I'm off to vacation for a few days with my family over the holidays. So I haven't watched as much as I'd like to have already, but that's the first thing I'm gonna do now, is the next 2 weeks. And that's what ultimately, when I've talked to our staff on the offensive side and defensive side, special teams, this is all about self-reflection. It's about how did the Alouettes do in 2022 to see what we can improve on there, and then ultimately, yes, what went wrong in Saskatchewan, what went right, what are the things that we can correct, how does it relate to the players we have now in Montreal, what are some things you want to carry over, and you've got to look at it. And I think that's a natural thing that all coaches do in the offseason. Is the first thing you do is self-analyze and see what you can improve on, what you still like, and look at the numbers. And then you look at everybody else too, because there's a lot of other good teams in our league too, that very bright coaches that do a lot of things that maybe you quite didn't notice during the season, but when you get a chance to study it without being tired, and you can kind of get a grasp on it, that's where you change your offense a little bit in the offseason. And there's going to be change. There's going to be changes to what we do, and I think you need to grow each year. So there'll be something that's new every year.
It seemed like you and Cody, at least relationship-wise, were really tight. And did you feel like when he had hurt his knee that maybe he should have been sat down and that could have been something that helped
You
the
know,
season?
I love Cody. I mean, I think the world of him. I do. I think he's a tough-minded, strong, great leader. I think he's passionate about playing. You know, he gives everything he's got on every single play. And though I respect him like crazy, he played. He had a tremendous injury that he played through. I mean, and when you're a mobile quarterback and you can't move as well as you'd like, when you look at it in hindsight, yes, would it have been more beneficial for us probably to rest him? He didn't want to rest, I can assure you that, and he was willing to play through it. Did it hinder some of the things that he could do? Sure. But he was willing to play through it, and we were in a lot of games with him, even though he was injured. We were still right there in the mix, playing those games, winning some of those games, you know, being there right to the end with him playing that way. But I mean, ultimately, when you look back, I feel for him because he gave everything he had to that team and to the organization, and it just didn't turn out the way any of us had planned. And so, yeah, I mean, you can always look back and go, gosh, but I'll tell you what, he became a better quarterback because of that year, because when you go through the ups and downs that he did, you know, there's a lot of positives that can be brought out of that too. And toughness is something you need as a quarterback. So when you prove to an organization you're willing to put your whole body and health on the line for them, everybody sees that.
What do you see for his future? Because he was banged up and people are down on him compared to what he did in 2019.
I don't know if I can speculate too much on that,
right. Yeah.
with the free agency stuff, and he's still a member of Saskatchewan, so I'd probably rather not to look at it. But I will say this, I mean, knowing the guy, he's a great individual. He gave everything he had, and I respect him like crazy. Being around him for 3 years, I mean, you're not going to meet too many better individuals than him, and I very much enjoyed working with him.
Then let's talk about a quarterback that you can speak on.
Yeah.
Trevor Harris is currently at least under contract until February 14th when free agency opens. How badly do you want him back, and how much have you let that be known?
Yeah, I mean, I've let him know. I've let everybody know. That's first and foremost on our organization's mind, is to get Trevor Harris back. I mean, we spoke earlier on this. I mean, I can't do any more. Like, there's nothing more he can know of me. I can talk on. You know, anything he needs to hear, I've already said it. Anything he needs to know about me, he already knows. I know Trevor extremely well, having been around him for the 10 plus years of him being in the CFL. You know, what you see is what you get with him. He's a tremendous leader. I mean, one of the hardest working guys I've ever been around. I don't care the positions. He puts more time in than most. And you know what you're getting. You're getting consistent individual every single day. So very excited with the thought of him coming back. But, you know, until that happens, you know, you've got to be prepared in case. But, you know, ultimately right now the focus is blinders. And it's like, we got to get him. And, you know, but there's nothing else to do. It's the negotiating process, and you know, he's got a business decision to make, and you know, you've got to respect that.
Danny Machocha felt optimistic, if I'm paraphrasing, that he could be re-signed before free agency. How critical could it be to put Harris in place so then you can start re-signing some other guys, or you can make plans for free agency and say, hey, we have our franchise QB?
I think it's extremely important. I mean, I think when you're talking about building a winning franchise, you know, the first thing everyone thinks of in football is who's the quarterback of the franchise and the face of it going to be. And Trevor's tremendous in that aspect. So to have him under wraps prior to free agency and being able to put the other pieces in that surround that, because you're talking money, you're talking, there's only a certain amount that can go around. So the sooner you know what price you're dealing with, and everyone else around him can see it and be like, okay, that's the guy there. Now I want to come play in Montreal. And for the guys that were in Montreal that know Trevor, it's like, okay, now good, that we're set there, and you know, they can make their decisions with a clearer mind. Because if I was a number one receiver, I understand it. Who is the quarterback that's going to be throwing the ball to me, and what offense are we going to be run? Because it's going to be tailor-made to the quarterback that's there. And so when you see the guy and you know the system you're going to run and the success he's had in it and all those things, you can start to speculate on what it could be. And I think that's exciting for everybody. So yeah, the sooner that gets done, I think we're all going to sleep better at night in Montreal. Not to mention the same thing, you know, it allows us as coaches to start talking to Trevor and talking about the season and what we're going to do and what he did well and what we can improve upon and what did he see and where does he want the offense to go and what kind of things we can do together. Because right now those conversations aren't being made and aren't being had because you simply don't know if he's going to be back or not.
That number one receiver you mentioned, I don't know if you were alluding to him or not, but Eugene Lewis is a pending free agent as well. Do you think the quarterback gets signed in these situations before the receiver, or can the receiver sign, and can they talk to each other and get them both to re-sign? How could that play out?
I would assume it's they're probably talking to each other a bit, but we've talked to both. I've talked to both of them. Had a great conversation with Eugene before the holidays after I had gotten signed, sitting down with him. He's a tremendous guy, and you don't get to see that until you do sit down with someone. So whether it one signs first or the other, I just hope they both sign, bottom line. And so whatever it takes for either one of them to do that, I hope it gets done, because they're both going to contribute tremendously to the success of our organization this year. And I think they both understand that and know that, but until they do sign, you don't know. But to answer your question, one or the other, however it happens, I just hope they both do.
Eugene Lewis is an immensely talented receiver. You were around one of those with Saskatchewan with Duke Williams, but I don't think people would feel like he lived up to the amount of money he was making or the, I guess, production that he had in the past. You as the offensive coordinator for the Riders, how do you view the season that he had in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the Riders the last 2 years that I coached there, I will say this: there was a lot of talent on the receiving corps. The problem, in my opinion, when you look at it, none of those guys played 18 games. And when you talk about production in our league, the guys that produce week in and week out, year in, year out, and get the 1,000 yards and do all those things, usually those are the healthy guys. Those are the guys that can play for 18. Eugene Lewis played for 18 games. So you get guys, when you can do that, you're going to be productive, because each week you learn the system better, you learn the quarterback better, all those things. So when I look at the injury history of what happened over 2 years, you're looking at Shaq, you're looking at Duke, you're looking at Swerve. Those three guys didn't play all the games, and Duke especially this year. His production when he played, yeah, can he make more plays? Sure. Can we throw the ball better? Yes. All those things. But ultimately, if Duke would have just stayed healthy for the entire year, I think everything would have played itself out. He's a great player, and he's tremendous. And I think the injury bug hit that position group pretty hard over the last 2 years, and it affected a lot of things. So I don't look at the individual and say, man, they didn't play up to their capabilities or up to their money value. I think injury had a lot to do with Duke and the receiving corps there.
One of those talented receivers you had in Saskatchewan, Keon Schaefer-Baker, has had a bunch of NFL workouts. It seems like he's going to sign an NFL contract. Do you believe he could be a guy that can make an impact in the NFL?
I think Schaefer is just a tremendous athlete, tremendous receiver in person, and I think whatever that kid sets his mind to, he can accomplish. So I think if he's given a great opportunity down there, a good opportunity, he'll make the most of it. So yeah, I mean, I think he's very talented.
And for Montreal, what's his transition like for you? Because I feel like a lot of times I've talked about this with a few other guys already, but fans and media, we view kind of players and even coaches and GMs as chess pieces. But you got to move your entire life now to Montreal. Yeah. What's that like for Jason Maas?
Yeah, it's different on a family. I mean, I've got a wife and 2 kids, and we've established roots in Alberta, and we've been living there now since 2016, and a lot of great friends and people we consider family there, and school systems and all that my kids have grown up in, and their friends. So to uproot a family to move for football is difficult, and let alone across the country. And Montreal's different. I mean, it's a cool city, but it's different than Alberta. So getting used to that kind of thing is going to be something we're looking forward to. I mean, change is sometimes a good thing, and experience more than anything is good. So for a family, and we've been used to moving, and we've been used to being apart. So we do our best as a family, and I try to do my best to concentrate on football during the season, and in the off season, they know they get to spend more time with me, and I get to spend more time with them. But we're a football family, and I think when you say that word, when you say it that way, football families understand what you're talking about, and you got to have a strong wife and strong kids to get that, and make it easier on me to do my job to the best that I can. And I have a strong family that allows me that opportunity.
Enjoy Montreal with the family, and thanks for catching up with us in the mountains.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yep.